Welcome to Homemaker Living. My name is Teresa, and today I thought we'd take a look at what's growing in the garden. My last video, A Day in the Garden, was filmed about a month ago, and since then a lot has happened. All 38 beds have been planted and are growing nicely, and I thought we would just take a quick buzz through the garden and touch base on everything just to see how it's doing. We'll start here in the front of the garden by the entrance gate. This is what I call the trellis courtyard. So here I have tomatoes. I have 2 crimson and 2 gold nuggets, and then a couple of cilantros on each side that are still doing really well, surprisingly, in this heat. And then here are my cucumbers. I have one regular munching cucumber, that's what it's called, munching, and 3 pickling, which I think I'll let go with 2 vines each so that my husband has plenty of cucumbers to make his countertop pickles. And in the middle here, I have arbors for grapes. And this grape from last year is doing really well. Well, actually, it's in its 3rd year. We'll come back to that. So I had a green grape here that died. I replaced it with an interlaken green grape this year, and it's not doing that well. And underneath here, I have a butternut squash that had too much sun earlier, and so I gave it a little bit of shade. And I took these 2 grapes out. They were red flame seedless grapes, and they did not, well, I thought they didn't make it through the winter, so I took them out and just put in here Vanessa, which is a red seedless grape, and it's doing really well. And then I have a purple Manuka that is faring way better than that interlaken over there, so I'll have to say that she's doing good. And I have another extra butternut squash right there, a backup. And then here is the grape that is doing really well this year. This is its 3rd season, and I pruned it correctly this year. And so it came out of dormancy well, and it is producing a number of grape bundles, bunches, whatever you call them. And this one's looking really good. I might need to prune it a little bit more. I don't know if it can really support all of that fruit, and I want some good sized grapes. So I'm really excited about that. Then here I have pinto beans. Last year I had about 10 plants. This year I have 20. They are a bush vining type, so I'm not sure exactly if they'll climb up this or they'll stay bushy, but last year they did get kind of viney. And then here we have our sugar snap peas. They grew really well. They were late to bloom, and they're surprisingly doing really well in this heat, but we are picking a lot of peas throughout the day. And then over here I have our strawberries. These are the 2 strawberry beds that I had last year. In fact, actually, these strawberries are 3 years old. These are daughters from those. They're 2 years old. I had some loss in these this winter, and so I have a reduced number of plants here, but I hadn't planned to have 2 beds this year because I had way too many strawberries last year, and so I was going to go down to 1 bed. So I grew daughters from them last summer, overwintered them in the garage, and put them in a different bed. And then these came back, and they're doing so well, and it looks like they're going to produce pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and keep them this year. But I have almost the same amount of plants, 3 beds, but the same amount of plants. So hopefully I won't get any more strawberries than I did last year. I know, such a problem to have, right? Too many strawberries, but my freezer is still full. So we're going to have to eat these fresh ones and probably make some jam and some desserts and some pies so that I don't have to freeze very many. Here's my bush raspberries. They're a thornless bush variety. And I had originally 5 plants in here, and this is their 3rd year, and they produced a lot of canes last year. And so they're doing really well, and we are getting a lot of berries. They're just coming on really nicely, and we'll be probably harvesting from this for a number of weeks. And then this is my asparagus that We harvested it a couple of times and then we let grow to fronds so that they can put energy into their crowns for next year. So I'm surprised that these are still standing with that windstorm we had, but some of them are some pretty good sized stalks. So I'm happy to see they're still up. And then we'll just buzz over here on the side of the garden studio. And I have a raised bed here for cold frame. The lettuces are done. The cilantro is still in here. So I popped in some cantaloupes that I harvested the seeds from some cantaloupe that we had that are really yummy, and I wanted to see if I could grow the same. And then a couple of crimson sweet watermelons that I did not grow from seed. I've grown everything else from seed practically except those. I couldn't find those seeds, so I was able to find some starts. I was excited about that. And this bed, I made my cantaloupe bed this year, and I have some flowers at the top here, cosmos and zinnias, and they're doing really well. And then I have canary, honey rock, Minnesota midget, and then a couple of jumbo cantaloupes that have a long maturity date. Here's a sorrel, and then I have some chamomile on the side. And then let's start with these 2 rows of beds. I have 19 beds in here. And here's that strawberry patch I just told you about that I planted from the daughters I kept from last year. So they're doing really good. I'm happy to see that. Here's our broccoli bed. Usually it's under a shade cloth, but we've had some mild weather, so I took it off so I can get some good sun, and happy to say that the heads are starting to form. So I'm excited about that. I think there are 10 broccoli in here, succession planted. So I did these 4, and then the next 4, and 4, although they look about the same size, so they're happy. And I had extra, so I put them in another bed. This year I only did 1 bed of onions. We still have onions from last year, so we definitely did not need 2 beds. And I'm growing Cortland, Talon, Walla Walla, and in the back there I have some red. That variety is Monastrell. Here is a potato bed, Purple Majesty. It's doing really well. I'm happy with it. Here is my covered lettuce cool weather crop bed. Can't really see in there. I should have uncovered it, but I have 3 different kinds of beets. Maybe I'll throw a picture in here, and radishes that are in here. I'm keeping the leaf miners and the leaf hoppers off of that, so that's doing its job. My garlic is getting close to needing to be harvested. We had a windstorm come through, that same one that I thought would take out the asparagus, and knocked some of them over. But they'll be harvested probably mid-July, so we'll go ahead and, I don't know if I've mentioned it, it's the end of June, so we'll turn the water off, let them sit for a couple of weeks, and then we'll harvest those. Over here I have a couple more tomatoes. These are ground cherries. I have never grown these before. They were recommended, so we're going to try that this year. I like how they're looking. Don't know how they'll taste, but they're supposed to be good. And then here's 2 Romas that we'll use for salsa and salads. Don't really can anything with them yet, so but they're looking healthy and good. I do need to get in here and thin them out a bit because they are pretty much bunched up in there, but I'll wait till a cool morning, maybe tomorrow morning, to do that. Here's my pepper bed. I have a couple of bell peppers at the front. They're already putting on some fruit and doing some flowering, and I have 3 jalapenos. You can see that little plant there has got some fruit on it. This is a grilling pepper. And then I have some sweetie peppers in here, those little tiny peppers you get from the store in the bags that are red, orange, and yellow. I grew those from the seeds from some of those peppers that we purchased. And then these are habanero. They're supposed to be the flavor of habanero, but not the heat. And they're slow to grow. I'm not super impressed with them right now, but we'll see what happens as the summer goes on. This bed is a potato bed as well. I had red Nordland in 2 of the rows and Yukon Gold. And the red Nordland got blight really bad. And I cut them all down this week, left the potatoes in the ground, turned off the bed. I'm hand watering the remaining Yukon in here, and let those skins toughen up before we harvest them. But most likely we're just going to eat these, as we harvest, because They don't, from my experience, they don't make very good storage potatoes. So we'll eat these and I will not plant those again. So got a couple survivors of the blight here, these Yukon. And then these two beds here are exactly the same. So I have these cattle panel trellises in here for the butternut squash and the lady die runner beans. I overseeded celery, so when I went ahead and transplanted it, I ended up with 36 plants, which is kind of a lot for us, but I'll just freeze what we don't use. You can use it in broth and soups and stews and whatnot. So I've done that before and that works well. So what I threw in these beds had some leftover Huckleberry Gold potatoes, so I threw those on that row, some extra onions on this row. Those I used to try to have pest control for the butternut squash. Then I also started these marigold seeds. Oh, I'm so impressed with these flowers. They are so gorgeous. I've never had marigolds that have ever filled out like this. They're so beautiful. So I did that for pest control too for the squash bug. We'll see if that works. So again, this bed is exactly like that. The lady die runner beans, they will fill up this entire trellis and beans will just hang down and we will harvest them all the way into October. They are so good. This is the only green bean I grow now because they are that good. And they have really pretty red flowers. Let's see, what else do I have in here? So a couple of zinnias. I had extra that I started from seeds, so I threw those in there. And again, some marigolds on this side. But my squash, this is new to me this year, honey nut butternut squash. And I actually have one already on here, and I'll tell you why I'm so excited about that. And this is the one I normally plant. This is Waltham butternut, and so I just wanted to try a different variety this year too. But the reason I'm excited is look at these that are already one, two, where's the third one? Three. So I'm going to watch these like a hawk, and when they flower, I'm going to make sure I get them pollinated. And the reason I'm excited is I always have my butternut squash, the female flowers come up really late in the season. And then I'm really pressed to have them mature before harvest. And so this year, I've already got them in June. So fingers crossed that I'm going to have some excellent butternut squash this year. Okay, another bed of potatoes. This is 2 rows of Kennebec. That's new to me this year, as well as red Pontiac. And I went with these because I understand they're good storage potatoes. And I just looked up, the Kennebec is resistant to early blight. So fingers crossed on that. But I'm really excited about those because they're supposed to be good storage potatoes. If I said onions, I think I said onions, potatoes. And unfortunately, this bed did not fare as well. This is a whole bed of Huckleberry Gold, which is another favorite of mine. But we had that big windstorm. It came with thunder, lightning, and pouring down rain. And then we were humid for a couple of days, like really high humidity, which is a recipe for disaster when it comes to the nightshade plants. And this one took a hit too. So I went through, it wasn't the whole plant. So I went through and cut off all of the foliage that looked like it was affected. And I just come out here every day and I watch to see if they're doing any better or worse. Their maturity date is 7 to 80 days, and I think they're on day 67 right now. So if I can get them another week or two, then I should have some decent sized potatoes. And this is my last potato bed, and I think I have 3 different varieties in here. I have Huckleberry Gold here, so I have it here, I have it there, and I have it in both of these beds because I just really like that potato. And then I have Yukon. A couple didn't come up, but the rest is Yukon Gold and Pontiac Red. I had extra there, so I made a row there. So essentially I have 2 rows of Pontiac, 2 rows of Kennebec, the equivalent of 2 rows of Huckleberry Gold that are doing well. 1 row, I guess 2 rows of Yukon, and then I have full beds of that Huckleberry Gold and that purple because we both love those too. So we'll see what kind of harvest we get from that, but that's why I have full beds of those. And then in this bed I have cabbage. So I'm really excited about the cabbage. I planted in succession, so it wouldn't be ready all at the same time. But these heads I think are ready to harvest. So there's 4 of them I planted at the same time. I didn't have any ant issues this year because I made sure to take care of that early on. Anticipated I'd have an issue, so I took care of that. Anyway, these 4 are doing really well. They're ready for harvest. I just have 1 in the house from the store that I'm still using. Then the next 4 are the same age and they're half that size. And then I only have 2, sadly, only 2 red cabbages, purple cabbage. I had a hard time getting them to germinate this year, and then I couldn't find any at the nursery. So I just have 2 this year, and then I put in some dinosaur kale right there. And then here are my carrots. I'm growing Scarlet Nantes. I grew 2 varieties last year and they both turned out well. I was skeptical about the Scarlet, but they did really well. And so I've thinned them a couple of weeks ago and they are just growing so nicely. And as we need carrots, I will go ahead and thin them, select like every other carrot as we need them, which we're just about out of our Costco carrots. And we picked one the other day that my husband wanted to have one, and it was a good 6 inches already and probably as big as my thumb. So those are ready to start consuming. So we'll have now carrots we can use all the way through the season. And when I harvest them, we just ran out of carrots like 6 weeks ago, and they stored really well. And almost to the end here, I have a bed of corn. I really struggled with the corn this year. Next year, I'll germinate it in cells inside and then transplant it. As you can see, I have 3 different sizes because I've sowed 3 times. So I have the largest ones. There's 4 from the first. And then I have these teenage ones that are next. And then I have, well, I actually have some little ones. There's this one and that little guy. So I'll just have to make sure that I come out here and get them pollinated as they start to have tassels and silks to make sure we can get some. But that's plenty for the 2 of us. We'll be lucky if we get one good corn from each one. I've never done really well with corn. And I had an extra butternut squash right here that I planted there because this bed was empty. And then I had some extra basil, and then I planted some basil around it for pest control for the squash bug. And in this last bed, I have 2 zucchinis. One of them is Ford Hook and one of them is Black Beauty. And I'm growing them up these poles so that they don't lay on the ground. I did it last year, tried that way, and it worked out really well. Keeps everything up off the ground. And I'm able to search for squash bugs much easier because as you harvest these, you can take off the row of leaves underneath what you've harvested. So I've learned, and so that's what I did last year, and it worked really well. So eventually they'll have no leaves on the ground, and I should be able to manage squash bugs a little bit better. This is an acorn squash, a bush variety that's new to me this year, and I'm trying it up the pole. Since it's a bush variety, I figured I could do that. But as well, I'm trying to get it so I get it up off the ground and the leaves off the ground so I don't have any squash bugs. So far I have found 3 and a few eggs. Oh, and lastly, here in this bed, I have parsnips. I've tried to grow them in the past, was not successful. So this year I did them the same method I do carrots with burlap, keeping the soil moist so the seeds, as soon as the seeds germinate, you take it off. But anyway, I have this on here so the birds don't eat all my little seedlings. So the parsnips are coming up nicely, and then I just put these old buttercups on there to that I got to keep it off there so they can get a little bit taller so the birds don't come and annihilate them. So first year to grow the parsnips, I'm excited about that. And let's go back up to the front and let's just take a look at my berries. Let's start up here. I have this bed as well, and I have cosmos in the front and watermelon. That most of it I started from seed. Mini Love and 3 Jubilees, and then the Crimson Sweet that I got from the nursery are in here, and they're doing really well. And then I have some chamomile here that I literally have to harvest every day if I want to catch those. And then here I have my blackberry trellis. I'm just going to buzz through these real quick. This is Columbia Star Thornless. I've never had berries from it. It's been challenged through a couple of the winters, but this year I have berries and they're looking good. So I've got some berries forming on it, and I'm excited to try those. If I like them, she stays. If I don't, she goes. Here's a olali that I propagated from the end of my olalis from last year. So that one's already setting fruit and turning black. And then here's another olali that I propagated that I popped into this hole because this blackberry was supposed to be a Columbia star. It was not. It was invasive. It was coming up everywhere. I took it out. So I popped one of those in there. This is a paro that I got from a local fruit stand, and I wasn't really impressed with the berries. When you eat the olali, those are amazing. And so I'm like, oh, should I keep growing this? But my gosh, this plant filled in amazing. It's beautiful. All of these berries on it. I mean, if anything, they'd be great for baking, freezing, baking, smoothies, whatever. So I'm pretty sure A, I'm going to keep it, and B, I might propagate it for an experiment that I'm going to try. So again, these are all my olalis. This year I'm going to try to restrain myself, and so far I've only got the new canes coming up. I've only kept 3 for each plant. These are 2-year, all of these are 2-year canes, so they grow the first year, the cane with just vegetation. The second year, they grow the vegetation and the berries, the flowers and berries. So that's what we're looking at now, but all the new canes have already come up for next year, and so I've been selectively pruning out those that I don't want. And it shouldn't look as bushy next year because this is kind of hard to work with when I've got so many tied up on it. So, but I can't recommend this one enough. If it is a lolly, it's my guess because they were here in the front yard when we moved in and we transplanted them back here. And my guess for my research, I've eliminated and come down to it must be a lolly. Okay, so here's one of the grapes that I took out last or in the spring that I thought was dead, and it actually came back. So I'll probably swap that one out for that interlaken that doesn't look like it's doing anything. And then in this bed, I made it my sunflower bed this year. And I've got 4 different types of sunflowers in here, taller ones in the back, and then the teddy bear in the front. So this one should look really good when it's all in bloom. And in fact, I have a couple that are starting to open up. And then here are my 2-year cane raspberries that are not the bush variety, and they have thorns, unfortunately. So this one is called Tulamine, and it is, a 2-year cane, so the canes come up. Here's new canes that are coming up this year. And here, those flowers go to a different plant. And it won't have any flowers. Then they'll overwinter, and then they'll push out vegetation again, and then they'll push out flowers like these have done. This is 2nd-year wood. And I'll get berries from this probably in a couple of weeks. So I'll get those bush, I'll get these will be done, and then these can be a 2-year cane. These are kokanee, and 1st-year canes will develop flowers. In fact, look at this one already is developing some blossoms, and they will blossom this year. And then if you left the canes, they would, so let me back up. These ones I'll harvest towards the end of summer, August, September. If I left the canes and treated them like that, then I would have raspberries at the same time I'm having this. And new canes would also be growing up and harvesting then in the late summer, early fall. But I don't really need that. So I have these, I have the ones up there. These, I just let them blossom. We harvest late summer, early fall. And then when they die back, I cut them to the ground. So I have nothing here. And then in the spring, they'll come up again and repeat this all over again. So that way I have raspberries almost throughout the season. And then here I have a rhubarb. She's under an old beach umbrella because she didn't like the heat. I think they like part shade, and it's just way too hot here for her in this corner. So we threw this in here, and she perked right up, and she's had this on her for a couple weeks, and she pretty much is standing up now. If it gets too hot, she lays down a little bit, but I've been harvesting as well. So hopefully she'll do okay in this spot. My husband might build a trellis over her instead so we can give her put some shade cloth on it versus having a beach umbrella in here. But you know what? It's doing the trick right now, so that's good. And then I have blueberry row here. I won't go into a lot on the blueberries because I have a couple other videos about that. This is a transplant this year that's doing well. That's a Duke. This one is a Legacy, and she got transplanted this year, as well as, oh yeah, just those two. And then these I put in last year. One's a Patriot and one's a Blue Jay, and they're both doing well. And I also put this one in last year as well, but I didn't use the same amendments and method that I used on those three, because I learned after I planted this one. And so it's really yellow. It's a Duke. And so we're going to, in the fall, or when she goes dormant, dig her up, amend the soil the way it should be. So hopefully next year she'll come back green like those two. And then I've got this guy over here in its own little tent. The tent is to keep the birds from eating all the berries. But this one is about 9 to 11 years old. She's been through 3 different houses, I think. And so she's doing amazing this year. I've never had nearly this many berries from her. So I'm excited about that. And she's green. And I didn't plant it like I planted the other ones in those amendments. So she likes the pH of where she's at. And then lastly here of the berries is my boysenberries. This is new this year. I had some of those small Dukes that we took out, blueberries. That was in a different video. And put up this trellis, same that I have for the blackberries. And then I got these boysenberries from my sister, who I propagated them for her from my last house. And then she propagated them for me last year. And so we put them in about a month ago. And the canes from, this is a 2-year cane as well, just like the blackberries. And so last year's canes are giving us some fruit. I have it covered because the birds were getting them before we were. And then you can see here, there's a new cane for next year's growth. And here's another new cane for next year's, not growth, berries. And then we've got some laterals already pushing out down there. So these two are decent size. This one down here is a little small, but she'll catch up and be fine. On this one I have 3 new. 1, 2, and the 3rd cane for next year is coming up. So when these other canes are done, and I think there's timing to it. It would be at the end of the season that I'll cut those old canes out, make sure I have enough room for all the new canes that are coming in and hopefully pushing laterals, because that's where you get a lot of your fruit from, is the laterals. And lastly is in the bed areas is my herb bed. So this is new this year. We had a cherry tree here, and it died last year from aphid pressure. So we took that out, and we had this bed that a neighbor gave us last year, and my husband built me a new bed, raised bed here. And so I have parsley in here and basil, and this rosemary. I purchased this because I've tried for 2 years to grow it from seed and not have any success. Then a couple of times from seed, and an oregano. Actually, my neighbor gave me a start from this oregano. I purchased that sage, and then I planted some dill seeds so that we can use that for hopefully some of our pickling. Well, that wraps up the garden tour. This video is probably longer than I wanted it to be, but there's a lot to see. And I tried not to labor too long on each of the items, but you know, sometimes there's a story to tell. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.